There is one thing you should never do with a truly wild stallion: chase him. Because the moment you chase a wild horse, you're no longer trying to earn his trust. You're teaching him exactly why he should be afraid of you. But here's the strange part: sometimes the most powerful stallions don't need to be chased at all. They come back on their own. And when a wild stallion chooses to walk toward a human for the first time, something incredible is happening. So today, we're going to answer a question that sounds simple. Can you really tame a wild stallion? And the answer may surprise you, because taming a wild horse isn't about making it obey. It's about changing the way that horse sees you, and that can take weeks, months, or sometimes much longer. But before we get to that moment, you need to understand what you're dealing with. A truly wild stallion isn't simply a horse that has never been ridden. He's an animal that has spent his entire life making decisions for himself: where to go, when to run, who to trust, when to fight, and when to protect his herd. There are no fences telling him where he has to stand, no stable waiting for him at night, no human bringing him food. His instincts are his survival system. And humans? Humans are something he doesn't need. That creates a problem, because when a domestic horse sees a person walking toward him, he may think about food, grooming, riding, or attention. A wild stallion may think only one thing: danger. And that difference is exactly why the first mistake can ruin everything. Imagine seeing a magnificent stallion standing with his herd in an open valley. You slowly begin walking toward him. He's watching you. You take another step, his head rises. Another step, his ears point forward. Then suddenly, he turns. The entire herd moves. Dust explodes beneath their hooves, and within seconds, they're gone. You haven't even gotten close. But here's the important part: you didn't fail. You just learned something. The stallion has told you how much distance he needs, and if you ignore that message, you're going to make things worse. So what happens if you don't chase him? What happens if you simply stop? That's where the real process begins. You stand still. You don't move toward him. You don't try to catch him. You don't force anything. Eventually, the herd settles. The stallion looks back, and he sees something strange. You're still there, but you're not following. You're not chasing. You're not threatening him. After a while, you walk away. And that may be the first lesson the horse learns about you. You can approach and leave without causing harm. The next day, you return. The stallion sees you again. This time, you stay farther away. He watches. You wait. Nothing happens. Then you leave. The next day, you do it again, and again, and again. To a human, it looks boring. To the horse, it's information. The strange creature keeps appearing, and every time it appears, nothing bad happens. That's how trust starts. Not with a dramatic breakthrough, with repetition. But then something changes. One day, the stallion doesn't immediately walk away. He stands there, watching. You remain still. He takes one step toward you, then another, and then he stops. This is where an inexperienced person might make a huge mistake. They get excited. They walk forward. They try to close the distance, and the stallion runs. Months of progress can disappear in seconds. So instead, you stay where you are, and you let the horse make the next decision. The stallion takes another step. Now he's closer. He raises his head. He studies you. Then he does something even more interesting. He turns slightly sideways. Why? Because he's becoming less defensive. He's no longer standing completely prepared to run. He's watching you, but he's also relaxing. And that's when the relationship begins to change. But getting close is only one challenge. The next challenge is much harder: touch. A horse may allow you to stand nearby and still refuse to let you touch him, because a hand reaching toward his face or neck can trigger an instinctive reaction. So the first attempt is slow. The hand moves forward. The stallion stretches his neck. He smells it. Then suddenly, he pulls away. For a moment, it looks like everything is over, but he doesn't run. Instead, he comes back. He smells the hand again, and this time, he stays. The human touches his neck, only for a second. Then the hand disappears. That's it. No grabbing, no restraint, no trying to force the moment to last. The human walks away. And that may be one of the most important moments in the entire process, because the stallion has just learned something new. A human hand can touch him, and nothing bad happens. But then comes the part nobody talks about. Trust can disappear just as quickly as it appears. Imagine a sudden noise, a vehicle, a branch breaking, another horse running. The stallion's head shoots upward. His muscles tighten. His ears point toward the sound. And suddenly, the calm horse you've been working with for weeks is gone. He spins. He runs. And now you have a choice: chase him or let him go. The wrong decision is obvious. You let him go, because if you chase him, you're confirming his fear. If you give him space, you're giving him a chance to calm himself. And eventually, he stops. He looks back, and the human is still there, not chasing, not angry, not trying to punish him, just waiting. And this is where something fascinating happens. The stallion starts to learn that being afraid doesn't automatically mean mean he has to escape forever. He can move away, he can calm down, and he can come back. That is a much deeper form of trust, but we're still nowhere near the finish line, because the stallion is still a stallion. He's powerful, he's unpredictable, and he's responsible for protecting his herd. A mature stallion can weigh more than 1,000 pounds. He can move faster than a person can react, and if he feels trapped, even an experienced handler can be in serious danger. That's why good horse training isn't about proving who's stronger, because against a powerful horse, strength isn't the answer, communication is. The goal isn't to defeat the animal, it's to make the animal understand what you're asking, and that's when something incredible begins to happen. The stallion starts following, at first only for a few steps. The human walks away, the horse follows, the human stops, the horse stops, the human changes direction, the horse watches, and follows again. Nobody is dragging him, nobody is forcing him, he's choosing to stay close, and that changes the entire relationship. But there's still one question: can a horse like this actually become a riding horse? The answer is sometimes, but there's a huge difference between possible and appropriate. A wild horse isn't automatically a good riding horse just because it can be trained. Every horse has a different temperament, different history, different physical condition, different reactions, and some horses may never become comfortable with riding. That's okay, because the goal should never be to force every wild horse into the same role. The goal is to understand the individual animal. And there's another word people often confuse with taming: domestication. They're not the same thing. Taming happens to an individual animal. Domestication happens over generations. A wild stallion can learn to trust humans. He can learn routines. He can learn cues. He can potentially accept a halter, grooming, leading, and eventually other forms of training. But that doesn't magically erase thousands of years of instinct. He's still a horse. He's still going to react to things. He's still going to communicate through his body, and he's still going to remember whether humans make him feel safe or afraid. That's why the best trainers aren't trying to erase the horse's instincts. They're learning to work with them. Think about what that means. A horse doesn't speak English. It doesn't understand our intentions the way another human would. Instead, it watches everything. Your posture, your speed, your direction, your breathing, your movements, your consistency. A person can say, "Don't be afraid." But if that person's body language is aggressive, the horse isn't going to believe the words. The horse believes what it sees. And that's why patience matters so much. Every calm interaction becomes another piece of evidence. Every mistake becomes another reason for the horse to be cautious. Eventually, something happens that might look ordinary to anyone else. The stallion walks over. He stands beside the human and does nothing. No rope, no pressure, no food being waved in front of him. He simply chooses to be there. That is a massive moment, because months ago, the same animal would have run. Now, he's standing close enough to touch. And this is where we can finally answer the original question. Can you really tame a wild stallion? Yes, in some circumstances, but that's not really the most important question. The better question is, can you earn his trust without destroying what makes him wild? Because those are two completely different things. Anyone can try to control an animal, but earning trust is harder. It requires consistency. It requires patience. It requires knowing when to move closer and when to back away. And sometimes the most important thing you can do is nothing at all. Let the horse think. Let him choose. Let him walk away. And if he decides to return, let that decision belong to him. Because imagine the difference. A horse that stays because it's trapped and a horse that stays because it trusts you. They may look identical from a distance, but they're not. One is obedience. The other is a relationship. And that's why the moment a wild stallion voluntarily walks toward a human can be more powerful than any trick, ride, or performance. The horse is saying something without words. I know you. I remember you. And I don't think you are a threat anymore. That isn't weakness, it's trust. And trust is one of the hardest things to earn from a wild animal. So the next time you see a video of someone standing beside a powerful wild stallion, don't just look at the horse. Look at the distance between them. Look at the horse's ears. Look at his eyes. Look at his posture. Is he tense? Is he ready to run? Or is he relaxed? Those tiny details tell a story. And sometimes, the most incredible part of horse training is the part that looks like nothing happened. A person stands still. A horse watches. The horse takes one step, then another, and eventually, the distance disappears. Not because the horse was forced, because the horse chose to close it. And maybe that's what it really means to tame a wild stallion. Not breaking his spirit, not taking away his freedom, not proving that a human is stronger, but showing him day after day that trust is possible. Because a wild stallion doesn't owe you his trust. You have to earn it. And when he finally gives it, that's when something truly extraordinary happens. The wild horse doesn't stop being wild. He simply stops seeing you as the enemy. And if you had one chance to stand in front of a completely wild stallion, would you try to earn his trust? Or would you leave him alone and let him remain wild? Because there's something people often forget when they watch a powerful animal being trained. Not every animal needs to be trained. Not every wild horse needs to become someone's riding horse. And not every relationship between a human and a horse needs to end with a saddle. Sometimes the greatest outcome is simply creating enough trust for the horse to feel safe around you. That's an important distinction, because when humans look at a beautiful wild stallion, it's easy to think about what we want. Can we ride him? Can we own him? Can we train him? Can we make him perform? But a better question is, what does the horse need? That question changes everything. If the horse is frightened, injured, stressed, or unsuitable for domestication, the responsible choice may be to leave him alone. Some horses belong in the wild, and protecting that freedom can be just as meaningful as training a horse. That's what makes the idea of taming a wild stallion so fascinating. It's not really a battle between human and horse. It's a test of patience, a test of communication, and sometimes a test of whether a human is willing to put the animal's needs above their own. There will always be people who believe that a horse must be controlled, but the strongest relationships often work differently. The horse isn't forced to trust, it chooses to trust, and that difference can change everything. Think back to that first day, the stallion standing hundreds of feet away, watching, waiting, ready to run. Now imagine months later, the same horse is standing beside the person he once feared. His head is relaxed. His ears are soft. He doesn't need to be chased. He doesn't need to be trapped. He simply stays. That is the moment when you realize something incredible. The stallion was never truly defeated. He was never conquered. He was never broken. He simply discovered that the human standing beside him was no longer something to fear. And perhaps that is the real answer to the question. Can you tame a wild stallion? Maybe, but the better question is, can you earn his trust? Because you cannot demand trust. You cannot force it, and you definitely cannot buy it. You have to build it, one quiet moment at a time, one safe interaction at a time, one day after another. And even then, the horse always has the final say. That is what makes horses so extraordinary. They are powerful enough to hurt us, fast enough to escape us, sensitive enough to notice tiny changes in our behavior, and intelligent enough to remember patterns. A wild stallion doesn't need to understand our language. He reads our body, our movement, our consistency, and our intentions. So if you ever see someone standing quietly beside a horse that once ran from every human being, don't just look at the horse. Look at the patience that made that moment possible. Because sometimes the greatest achievement isn't making a wild horse do what you want. It's giving that horse a reason to choose to stay. And perhaps that's the closest thing to truly taming a wild stallion. Not breaking his spirit, not taking away his freedom, but earning his trust, without taking away what makes him wild. If you had the chance to stand in front of a completely wild stallion, would you try to earn his trust? Or would you leave him exactly where he belongs? Tell me what you would do in the comments. And if you love incredible horses, wild animals, and stories about the bond between humans and animals, subscribe to Roam Free, Grow Wild. Because sometimes the most powerful relationship isn't between a person and an animal that has been trained to obey. It's between a person and an animal that finally chooses to trust.